Hello again, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker in this session, Giovanni Galli from Urbino University and Beatrice Tioli from Modena Institute of Historical Research. And Giovanni will tell us about the turn of datacentrism in the digital humanities and the sciences. Please, Giovanni.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to participate in this conference. So many thanks to the organization and the contributors. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Urbino at the Department of Pure and Applied Sciences. And my research is focusing on philosophy of science and scientific understanding, epistemology of data science. And I'm now in Modena, and I apologize, I could not attend the conference yesterday, but in our region, Emilia-Romagna, we are hit now by devastating floods and from Bologna to Rimini, and the situation is really critical there. While here in the south of the province of Modena, the zone is safe. So today we'll present a work in progress. The aim is to build a bridge between sciences and digital humanities via the notion of datacentrism. Since the development of big data technologies, there have been continuous and tremendous updates of methods and platforms to extract, manipulate, mesh up many typologies of data within the frame of digital humanities and the sciences. And here we focus in particular on two areas. One is the use of big data in the historical project Time Machine, big data of the past for the future of Europe. And the second is the use of big data in the scientific practices facing COVID-19 crisis. A public health manager writing down the number of new infected people in a COVID-19 hospital ward, or a scientist extracting the amino acid sequence of the spike protein, or a farmer counting the number of cherry trees on our property are all examples of the interaction between the observers, researchers with different phenomena. The output of this interaction are data, which are information to be used in many ways for different purposes. And we can conceive data in these examples as representation or as evidence resulting from the interaction with the phenomena. And according to the representational view, data are reliable representation of reality, which are produced by the interaction between humans and the world. And the interaction that generate data can take place in any social settings, regardless of research purposes. Data are objects with fixed and unchangeable content, whose meaning, in virtue of being representation of reality, needs to be investigated and revealed step by step through adequate inferential methods. Instead, according to an alternative view about data, the relational view proposed by Leonelli, data are objects that are treated as potential or actual evidence for scientific claims in a way that can, at least in principle, be scrutinized and accounted for. The presentation of data, the way they are identified, selected, included, or excluded in databases, and the information provided to users to recontextualize them are fundamental to producing knowledge and significantly influence its content. So in both ways, the relational and the representational way of conceiving data, they are the building blocks of knowledge production and dissemination. The first approach focuses on the representational property of data, while the second approach decouples it, insisting on the pragmatics of data production, processing, and traveling. So due to to big data analysis and methodology, Leonelli labeled the term data-centric science to address how digital access to data has revolutionized biological and biomedical sciences. And she says, rather than a data-driven approach, we are witnessing the rise of a data-centric approach to research. This is characterized by three main features. One, data are no longer byproducts of administrative and research processes, but rather research outputs and valuable commodities in their own right. Two, efforts to mobilize, integrate, disseminate, and visualize data are viewed as central contributions to discovery, since the more data travel, the higher the chance that they will acquire new significance and meaning. And three, consultation of data resources, typically mediated by complex digital infrastructures and databases, constitutes the first step in any process of inquiry and plays a key heuristic role in determining future research direction. So digital and computational methodology are renewing tools to drive scientific research to empower an alliance between data science and scientific disciplines and digital humanities. So about the time machine. This is a project funded by the European Union Horizon 2020, aiming at creating a collective digital information system mapping the European economic, social, cultural, geographical evolution data across times. The research teams says that in the proposed approach, digitization is only the first step, is the only one, the main step of a long series of extraction processes, including document segmentation and understanding, enhancing by augmented virtual reality applications, leading to simulation of hypothetical spatiotemporal four-dimension reconstructions. And the variety of data used is huge, as you can imagine, and their conceptualization is useful to gain an epistemic characterization in the historical domain of digital humanities. Here in this figure, we can see the figure creating the big data of the past, and at point A, we have like the current situation. At the point B, we have the extension based on digitization and processing of new sources. And at point C, we have the extension based on a simulation. Okay. I think that we can find some principles, common principles involved in the scientific domain, scientific research domain, and in the digital humanities domain. And today, researchers are running against the clock to face at least 3 barriers to run data-driven investigations. And the first one is that data specialists refer to the fact that approximately the 80% of the researchers' time is spent finding, cleaning, and organizing data. And the second is that the availability of research data declines quite rapidly as articles age. And third, raw data supporting the scientific results or proper descriptions of data repositories are lacking in many investigation and articles. And these are obstacles and barriers that may hinder innovation and scientific development because they increase what is the so-called reproducibility crisis of scientific experiments. And hence, to avoid such problems and to optimize researchers' effort and time, some research organizations like Gopher and World Data Systems and the Research Data Alliance are studying and discussing how data initiatives can be properly incorporated into the life cycle of data-driven experiments, aiming to increase preservation and sharing and reuse of data. And this is the case of the FAIR principle. So findable, accessible, interoperable, and reproducibility, according to Wilkinson et al. And this is urgent to build a fair ecosystem within the scientific endeavor and also within the digital humanities domain. Okay, coming back to the last years of the COVID pandemic, this complex phenomenon, this critical phenomenon, revealed that for scientific and policy-making purposes, researchers and institutions need to make use of big data technologies. And this idea, according to Leonelli, generated many imaginaries of data use, which I conceive as characterizing the scientific understanding implied in the scientific practices facing the COVID pandemic. The concept of imaginaries comes from Yazanov and Kim, and according to them, the imagination is seen as an important and cultural resource that enables new forms of life by projecting positive goals and seeking to attain them. And the core of this notion is that these imaginaries, embedded in the social organization and practices of science and technology, inform and shape trajectories of research and innovation. As imaginaries of data use, Leonelli proposes a conceptual and pragmatic framework identifying data science practices realized according to policies to contrast the pandemic. And some of the imaginaries she catches are to be implemented, and some other are to be taken carefully. So one example, I've written down all the case she made, the 6 case she made, and then I add 3 of them, but we are not all the time to dig into deeply each one of them. But for example, the first one, the imaginary of data use concerning the population surveillance, is one of the first reaction to challenge the crisis. That is to track and trace the spread of the contagion. And basically, we have seen surveillance in this case conceived as lockdowns to control and limit population movements. But then we have also the imaginary of data use of predictive modeling, that is one way to represent the development of the outbreaks. And it is strongly related to the big data, and specifically to the idea that messiness and correlations are better than exactitude and fairness when it takes to extrapolate data without accuracy measures. But then I submit that we can add also more imaginaries. So this a kind of first step to build a complete like a meta representation of imaginaries. And for example, the one I suggest to add is data definition and management. That is a kind of meta-imaginary that focuses on the status of data used within different contexts, gathered from many objects and for a variety of purposes. And another one imaginary, I think useful also to catch epistemic features in the digital humanities domain is the information infection, like infodemic, disinformation, conspiracy. That is the imaginary concerning the bulk of mis or disinformation produced by conspiracy theorizer or binge-clicking media websites that do not report well-stated and peer-reviewed articles and give space to infodemic speakers. So there is, I think, also a third approach to the conceptualization of data. We have seen the first 2 approaches, the representational and the relational. And I think that the third view conceives data as perspectival. According to this view, data are pieces of information determining the scientific or the digital humanity representation of the phenomena under scrutiny. And data as perspectival are co-produced by the scientific community working on the same object with similar purposes, yet preserve the representational property, which is the trace of continuity, linking the research input from scratch to its output as refined, confirmed hypothesis. The COVID-19 research and the time machine case, I think, revealed to the public opinion the complex tangle of science and forced to refine better the assumption that and the conceptualization underlying the use of data that was the base of every scientific endeavor, maybe they pure or applied science, or also the domain of digital humanities. Thank you for your attention, and I just mentioned at the end, Forza Emilia-Romagna, so be strong, Emilia-Romagna. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giovanni, and I think I'll speak for everyone to say we wish a quick recovery for the whole region and all the best of health to all the people involved.
Thank you, much appreciated.
And maybe I'll start. So what this reminded me, specifically the idea of perspectival idea of data. It seems to me that one lesson learned for us, those who are aiming at building a database of intellectual history, is that any such database should make it easily possible to capture not only historical disagreements, historical perspectives on a certain topic, let's say early 18th century Cartesians versus Newtonians, that kind of disagreement, but also the contemporary disagreements of historians about the past events. For instance, contemporary disagreements between Newtonian scholars about what exactly Newton had in mind, speaking about active principles as causes of gravity, for instance. There seems to be a great literature there on that topic, and there's a disagreement. So these two levels, I think, both should be easily incorporatable into a database of intellectual history. So to provide the breadth and the depth. I guess I didn't have really a question, just maybe wanted to hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it would be useful trying to find these intertwining links between the debate about conceptualization of data and datacentrism in the sciences. May they be astrophysics, bioinformatics, and so on, and the debate about data and datacentrism in intellectual history or digital humanities. And I agree with you, because I think that we can maybe build on different layers and different levels, but the first one, and I think that it's the same idea incorporated also in the Time Machine project, is to couple the like the first source of literature, first source of information we have with the with another kind of representation, another kind of perspective on the same data. And I think that it is useful to build on these two levels of depth, because it allows us to enlighten different conceptualization and representation, also the awareness of the scholars and the critics of the time we are interested in studying, as your examples were pointing out. So I think it's useful, and I think that the debate and the philosophical literature about it could be implemented, so it could be also extended, because I think that it is not so a well-defined object of study. Yeah.
Thank you, Giovanni. Paul?
Yeah, what I'm wondering isn't the fact that data is perspectival, the fact that it's collected by a particular research team with a particular epistemic purpose in mind, doesn't that limit its ability to be shared? And don't we have to find a larger common purpose, okay, larger common epistemic purpose, if in order to make the data shareable? For some purposes that might be doable, some purposes it might be each research team doing its own thing and collecting, even one research team over time. You might, I had a paper that I never published because my understanding in neuroscience, because my understanding of the problem changed, and I didn't have the right, I had asked the questions from a different perspective than, and so I didn't have the wherewithal to recast the data in terms of the new perspective. So it seems like it's perspectives have a different, have a major constraining influence, and may, or at least maybe they're not a, maybe they're a feature, but that seemingly has to be taken into account when we're talking about pooling data from lots of sources.
Yeah, I think that we can distinguish between characterization of data as perspectival from consensus. So, and then when it takes to share data and also results and outputs, of course, we are in a stage of debate about the consensus, and we still wonder whether we have to accept a kind of interpretation, output, or perspective. But what I was what is my focus here is a kind of epistemological level, which I think the definition of Leonelli don't want to focus on, doesn't want to focus on, and it's fine with the Leonelli's framework. But I think that we cannot dismiss easily the representational assumption in the conceptualization of data. I agree with the with Leonelli and other scholars when they say that we need to be more we have to take care more about the pragmatics and the social settings in which we do research. But at the same time, what we want to have is an output that represent something, represent features, characterize a portion of the work, and then we can debate about the kind of perspectival representation we are dealing with. But I think that the aim is the same. So the aim is always to catch a good representation of a portion of the work.
Thank you, Giovanni. And thank you, Paul, for your question.
Thank you.
I think this concludes this particular talk. I will say thank you again to Giovanni.